Scope 3 is a term defined by the Greenhouse Gas Protocol, the world's most widely used greenhouse gas accounting standards, which organizations and governments use to quantify and manage their GHG emissions. Scope 3 emissions are indirect emissions from sources outside an organization's direct control. These are upstream and downstream of the organization's value chain activities, for example, purchased goods and services upstream and waste in operations downstream. Most importantly among them are business travel and employee commuting. Essentially, companies will be reporting a much wider range of emissions, probing into indirect emissions that come under the organization's broader umbrella. It is the case of employee mobility and indirect GHG sitting in Scope 3. Notice that whenever employee mobility is generated from a company vehicle, they fall into the traditional Scope 1 reporting for direct emissions. So, who regulates Scope 3? The European Commission has announced it will bring sustainability reporting in line with financial reporting standards that are regulated by the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, which requires large companies and listed small and medium-sized companies to include in a dedicated section of their management report the information necessary to understand the company's impacts on sustainability matters. On the 17th of October 2023, the EU Commission modified an important deadline in that directive. It officially reads, "The Commission is putting forward concrete proposals to reduce the reporting burden. One of them is to propose a 2-year delay of the date of adoption. The deadline is set by 30th June 2026 instead of by 30th June 2024. What are the suggestions on how to report them? The main issue is the indirect nature of Scope 3 emissions, as the control over them is weaker than on direct emissions. Although the EU has given an additional 2 years, it is highly probable that employee mobility will be one of the selected priority Scope 3 emissions to report upon for nearly all companies. It is key to define an initial calculation methodology, as there are no specific directives on the subject, simply because these are indirect. As mobility experts, you may be asked by HSE colleagues to fill the gaps from a technical standpoint. Therefore, partnering with suppliers, allocating budget for consulting, and/or reaching out to peers to collaborate on ideas, constraints, costs, and efforts is also something worth investing time in. The next point will be to ensure early on, for example, not so far from today, that whatever mobility benefit initiatives you wish to grant to employees, you also come up with an easy solution to capture relevant emissions from 2026 onwards. Eventually, elaborate on the data collected to create your organization's initial Scope 3 baseline. Although this is a target yet to reach, reflecting upon it now could help steer decisions in the right direction for an easier future for you to manage. Yes, there is a long way to go, but we have just been granted some extra time. Nevertheless, Scope 3 will surely be one of the subjects circulating in our conferences for the years to come, so let's start to think about it together.